are beginning to understand that good research ideas depend upon engagement with other researchers and their ideas. How do social scientists engage with one another's ideas? Typically, we don't work in lab settings, so there's no natural, ready-made creative space we can rely on. In the absence of an easily available communal environment, we can make ourselves part of a community of researchers through what Kenneth Hoover, a political scientist, describes as reasoned judgment. Hoover selected and then combined the terms reason and judgment to convey a very particular feature of the social science environment. He says that judgment is a means of problem solving that makes the best use of existing knowledge. Now that you have Hoover's definition of terms, what do you understand reasoned judgment to mean?
It places a lot of emphasis on existing knowledge, so I think that he assumes that new researchers will try to figure out what old researchers have done.
I assume by new you mean less experienced, and by old you mean more experienced.
I agree, except that the inexperienced researchers need to be aware of what previous researchers have done on that particular topic, and of what they're interested in, and it's a specific kind of knowledge, and he's not necessarily saying you have to know everything by any researcher ever.
Right, you have to be able to see the connection between the old research and what you want to do.
I think he's talking about a literature review.
Well, it's not quite that formalized yet, but yes, eventually it may become a full-fledged literature review. At this stage, we might call it more literature awareness. You start by familiarizing yourself with what others have written about the idea that interests you. Your goal is to discover what has already been done. You also need to understand what part of that previous research applies specifically to your idea. By making yourself familiar with their research, you are joining a community of like-minded researchers. You discover, in the words of Stephen Johnson, that hunches connect. One person has half an idea and somebody else has the other half. In the right environment, these connected hunches turn into something larger than the sum of their parts.
It seems to me that becoming familiar with the work of old researchers also supports the notion that ideas don't flash into existence.
Very good. Most great ideas derive from a long buildup of knowledge. That old knowledge comes to us as the legacy of generations of researchers. It'd be foolish not to take advantage of that legacy. It would be equally foolish for us to believe that when we have an idea, perhaps even a great idea, we are isolated and must forge ahead alone. The idea itself is our admission ticket to a larger community of scholars. Again, to quote Stephen Johnson, we take ideas from other people, from people we've learned from, and we stitch them together with our own ideas into new forms, creating something new. What does this conversation add to our knowledge of how research ideas emerge?
I would say it expands what it means to belong to a community of researchers. Getting to know the work of others makes us a part of that community.
Good. Anything else?
Yes, research ideas connect. We learn from others that the new knowledge improves the quality of our research ideas.
That supports the fact that ideas do not form and develop in isolation.
Right, very good.
I like that idea, that ideas are stitched together. We could say that we stitch together to mend this shaky understanding and cover the holes in our knowledge.
That's an excellent point. I like how you're extending Johnson's metaphor. We've accomplished a lot in a short time. Let's briefly summarize what we've learned about the emergence of good research ideas. You tell me, what should our list contain?
Well, first, good ideas do not suddenly flash into existence. They occur as the result of slow hunches over long periods of time.
What we think we know and our natural preference of what we know means that the bias can masquerade as insight.
And they don't occur in isolation. They are the products of shared knowledge and collaborative spaces.
Reasoned judgment gives us access to a community of scholars.
I like what was said a little while ago. Ideas stitched together to mend shaky understandings or cover holes in our knowledge.
Any others?
Well, I think that hits all of the high points.
I agree. I think the important insights are there.
I feel I have a new perspective and a few more tools to work with, but I could use a little more reinforcement.
No worries, we still have a lot more to consider together. I have some really cool things for you all to think about.
Cool in your world or in ours?
I guess you'll just have to come to class and see.